Hey, everybody, this is Andrew Vontz, and you're listening to Choose the Hard Way. This is the podcast about how hard things build stronger humans who have more fun. And doing those hard things is more fun when you do them with friends. I have a special friend of mine, a special guest here today, Spencer Martin from the Beyond the Peloton podcast newsletter. You may also know him from the NBC Tour de France analysis show. We're going to get to Spencer in a minute, but before we do, if you crypto with blockchain.com, it's best in class, and it is the place to go, whether you need a wallet or any of your crypto needs. When you gravel with Lauf. That's my preferred gravel provider of choice. I also all-road with Lauf on the Utal, the world's best all-road bike. And when you pod with Palm Tree Podco. Finally, before we talk to Spencer about today's special topic, which is, what do you do when you just have 1 hour to train? And it's not going to be the perfect hour, but what are you going to do with it? That's what we're going to talk about today, because it's something I run into all the time, and I'm sure you do too, because I bet that you have a demanding job, a lot going on with your family life, other obligations, and life and training are not always perfect. So what do you do when you have 1 hour? But first, if you're ready to be a world-class podcast guest or host, DM me at HardwayPod on Instagram or shoot me an email to hello@OneRealVoice. And if someone at your business or organization says, hey, let's start a podcast, or you currently have a podcast and it's creating a lot of process loss and no results, I want to let you know that I also provide strategic guidance to help you stop wasting time and start stacking Dolo, point your podcast in the right direction, and get the outcomes that you want. Again, you can reach me at hello@onerealvoice.com or at HardwayPod. As I mentioned, today's episode is a little different. And as you may have heard me mention back on the episode about the end of the Better Lab and the start of new things like One Real Voice, I'm applying the rapid prototyping methodology used in startup development to test some new approaches here on Choose the Hard Way. So I wanted to have Spencer on. As you may or may not know, I am a co-host with Spencer of the Beyond the Peloton podcast, and Spencer can also tell you a bit about his awesome Substack. And we have spent a lot of time together, and we also often both find ourselves in situations that are not optimal for training. As you know, I'm headed for the World Tour in 2025. Spencer right now is at an undisclosed location working 18 to 21 hours a day, squeezing in those workouts when he can. And that's what we're going to talk about. So before we get started, Spencer, anything you want to share with the people out there?
I do the Beyond the Peloton newsletter every day during major races. If you want to read it, beyondthepeloton.substack.com. I'm also on mini podcasts. One of them is ours, Beyond the Peloton podcast, but I also do The Move. And then during the Tour de France, The Move is on Peacock, which is basically live television after the stage. So that's demanding in the sense that you have to be there to watch the stage, and then you have to kind of manage. You have to do a little mini pre-meeting, figure out what you're going to talk about, and then you're on TV. And then TV finishes, I come home, and then I kind of deal with things that need to be dealt with at WEDU. And then once the afternoon starts rolling in, I start working on my time-consuming newsletter. So yeah, it doesn't leave me a ton of time for maybe the workouts I was doing 10, 15 years ago, Andrew, when I had no family. And let's be honest, not a super demanding job.
What you did have was sharp elbows, and attached to those elbows, a little higher up the arms, some gigantic biceps. If you haven't seen the photos of Spencer at Tulsa Tough, I'm guessing, what is this, 2012?
Yeah, I'd say peak biceps, 12, 13. And then, I don't know, actually, maybe like 2017 could have been peak biceps.
2017, peak biceps. This guy was out front, stacking Dolo, stacking wins. No mustache, which apparently is now mandatory if you are a United States criterium racer. So Spencer, you've got an hour, and what are you doing? Are you following a rigid training program? Are you going out and doing P90X?
I am not a rigid training plan follower. I think I've talked about it in my join ad reads. I don't respond well to authority. But this is tricky. This is like, I think about this all the time. So an hour, you have an hour to work out every day. Let's say this is the premise. Like in the wintertime, I find myself in this position a lot. I might do an hour on Zwift, and you think like, well, that's a good workout. But then what I end up doing is like, I'll just do the pace partner, and I kind of fall into the same routine every day, and I don't feel like I'm pushing myself. So then maybe to try to break that up, like let's say if in the wintertime, if I'm really pumping, I'll wake up, I'll try to get 100 pull-ups, 100 push-ups in before the kids wake up. Like that's the goal. And then when I'm on Zwift, I'm stopping like, every time you get that coffee break. So what's that, like every 30 minutes, like press the coffee break every 30 minutes and then do a circuit. Like you do some push-ups, pull-ups, lift some weights, little circuit workout, jump back on the bike. And if you really want to make that more complicated, like be on the bike. And then every time you do a descent, you hop off, do a little weight circuit, hop back on when the descent's over. In the summer, it's a little bit different. Like, I guess I'll just talk about my most recent experience. So right now I'm in Aspen, Colorado on the TV show. So it's a little bit different than my normal schedule. I wake up at like 5 a.m, watch Kilometer Zero. Once the race calms down, I try to ride to the studio. That might take me 25 minutes. It's mostly descent. There is a mile-long climb that it's like 9,000 feet. So if you're pushing 350 watts on that, that's tough. Get to the studio, finish a show, ride home as fast as I can, which, is like a 6-7 mile long climb. So that might take 45 minutes to an hour. And I do find just generally in life when I'm like combining my transportation with my workout, that actually is the best results, because then if you have like 30 more minutes in the day to do a workout, you do like a little circuit weight workout, and you have like a nice block of workout actually. And then here's the thing no one ever wants to hear. Like my family's in London. I was in London before I came here. We didn't really have childcare for a few weeks. So just like you're with the kids, it's super intense. You have no time. The thing that actually gets you in really good shape is like walking long distances for a long time. And if you live in a big city, that's very easy to do, maybe with the backpack on. You're basically just rucking around all day. You get in quite good shape. But even so kids are finally to bed, order our Indian takeout. And then I think the key to staying in shape as an adult is embracing the embarrassing. So it's like, well, the Indian place is a mile away. So I'll run a mile there and run home, like with my Indian food, trying not to spill it. But it's just like getting those little 2-mile runs in the evening, in addition to anything I did earlier in the day, is huge. Or I think you do this maybe where you go to a park with your kids and you do a circuit workout with TRX things at the park. Like anything you can do like that, I feel like is huge when you're a parent or an adult with a busy life.
And this is something that if you're somebody out there, you've got a coach, you're following a super rigid training program, you might think, what are these guys talking about? The reality is what you get done in the time you have that you enjoy is going to be the most effective workout. And I think a common mistake is to think that there is some specific increment of time that you need in order to do something that's going to be valuable for your mental and physical health or for your performance. Did you used to have a minimum increment of time that you were like, if it's less than this, I'm not getting
yes.
on a bike?
Yeah. It's like, I'm being dead serious. Be like less than 2 hours, don't even get on. Wasted time, but that's when I had a lot of time and I was training a lot. And then what happens is your life gets more complicated. You can no longer hit that threshold. And then you get really out of shape because you're like, well, if I can't go to the gym and lift weights for an hour, I remember in college, people saying that, if you're not going to lift for an hour, not even worth going. It's like, I guarantee you guys are wasting 55 minutes of your 60 minutes at the gym, and you could shove this all into a much shorter amount of time. But yeah, it's a huge obstacle I find that I have and most people have.
I used to think if I had less than 1 hour, I'm not getting on a bike. And now I think whatever amount of time I have in a day, if I am going to ride that day, that's the amount of time I'm going to ride. It might be 20 minutes. It might be 30 minutes. And something else that I do is I pay attention to how my body feels. I don't look at any data. I do wear a Garmin watch and it does have sleep and recovery metrics. And this was a big learning for me from the Better Lab and from the insight that led to the Better Lab and from the science that backed what we were doing at the Better Lab, that the ultimate sensor that is the best calibrated sensor ever made is actually the human body. And the more in tune you get with how you feel and what you're capable of doing on a given day, I think the more you're going to get out of your body and mind. And you also learn when to put on the brakes. So just as a for example, I had a very bad neck injury for about 3 months, and I'm slowly rebuilding fitness following that. That's limited a lot of my physical activity. As I've been getting more fit, there are some days when maybe I don't get perfect sleep. I don't have a ton of time. I'm thinking about 2 days ago, I went out. I just kind of see, hey, how do I feel today? And what do I think my body needs? And I also am doing some calculus in the background about what have I done most recently and what's a stimulus I haven't given my body recently that it might need in order to improve my fitness. So for me, over the past couple of weeks, at least one day a week, I'm making sure I go out and do some VO2 max. And I started with 30-second efforts a couple of weeks ago. Then I did a minute the following week. And I don't know about you, Spencer. I feel like everybody's got some certain kind of interval that they really hate. For me, it's once you get above like 2 minutes of VO2 max, I just find that to be really, really intensely uncomfortable. And so that's what I'm now doing. So this week it was 3-minute efforts. And I also will just use the terrain to kind of dictate when and where am I going to do those intervals. So I live in an area with a lot of rolling terrain. So on that ride, I just use the rubric of when it's going uphill, I'm going to go VO2 max. And if it's more than 3 minutes, then I'll stop and turn around, or I'll just ride easy to the next hill and do it again. And then I ended up racking up, I think, 25 minutes and like an hour and 10-minute ride.
It's so funny you say that, because where I'm staying now in Aspen or in Snowmass, it's a lot of like, I've rode to dinner last night and it's like a 1.5 mile descent. And then it's a 1.5 mile at like 8% on the way home. So you end up riding a lot of like sweet spot because, it's minimum 10-minute, maybe hour-long climb, but it's just like, I'm going to ride hard. I got to get home. But when at our house in London, it's around a lot of hills. So I do exactly what you just said. It's like, if I'm going uphill, I'm going 400 watts or higher. And then you end up just doing VO2 max workouts. Another thing is that this guy, when I was just getting into cycling, we're like, how do you get faster in crits? He's like, go chase cars. And like, that's kind of, when you're riding a city, that's kind of what you end up doing. It's like, I was just like mantra, like keep up with traffic. And I went out and did a ride. This was like a couple weeks ago. I came home, it was 1 hour, and my intensity score was like 0.98. Like, I didn't even think I went that hard, but I was just keeping up with traffic. And then it was basically as hard as I could go for an hour. So that is a super important thing. Like, just ride to the terrain you're at. And I was at a boss, Liam Donahue. He was a pursuiter, like a national level pursuiter on the track. And he was like, people think you can't get a good workout in 30 minutes on the bike, but go out and ride Flagstaff as hard as you can after work. I bet you're going to get a pretty good workout. Like, essentially turn riding into running. Like, put your heart rate up at 165 and go. And guess what? You'll get in pretty good shape if you do that. But there is a cyclist mentality of like, that's not how it's done. Or like, you need to go 3 hours minimum to get any training effect. And I just like simply don't believe that's true.
Yeah. Within reason, going out and getting that effort in is going to be exactly what you need to get faster, to be more fit. And conversely, to use today as an example, I've done 2 days of intensity this week. It's about 95 degrees here today in Hope, Maine. I shared some photos earlier. I'm glistening. I have a real sheen when I was out riding today. And I just knew, my body told me, hey, Andrew, you're cooked. Don't go hard today. So it's fine. I'm Z1, Z2. That's exactly what my body needed. I'm out riding in extreme humidity and heat. I'm going to get an adaptation from that. And then I probably need a rest day. at the same time, I think a big mistake people make, especially with all the zone 2 hype, is thinking I'm a time crunched athlete. I don't have a ton of time and I need to spend 80% of my time in zone 2. If you're someone who has a long training history, like I've been riding on geared bikes for, I think 36 years this year. I've been doing this for 36 years. I have a pretty decent base. And is it the biggest it's ever been this season? No. But if I have 5 or 6 hours a week to train, I don't need to go out and do 4 hours of zone 2, Spencer. In fact, that's probably the opposite of what I need to do.
Yeah, I feel like the zone 2 thing works and like maybe zone 2 is great, like for whoever's listening to this, but it works best if you have infinite time almost. Like if you're Pavel Sivakov, who says he spends like basically almost all of his time at like, it was like 310 watts. It's just what he does like 20 hours a week. It's like, well, that's great if you have 20 hours a week to ride. But if you don't, then what the pros are doing maybe isn't great for what you're doing. I feel like for the general person, like a 30-minute Peloton HIIT workout is going to be better for them than trying to follow what Tadej Pogačar is doing.
Yeah, that's a great example. And we haven't talked about Peloton on this episode, but whether it's Peloton, which I think a bit easier to just get on and pedal versus Zwift, or if you have a Zwift set up in your house, just having everything there so you can just hop on and go. You
should mention the crits in Zwift. I kind of glossed over that.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah,
that's like the best bang for your buck, I think, in cycling.
Yeah, I agree. What is it called? Crit City?
Crit City. I mean, it is like, I actually avoid doing them because they're so painful, which tells you it's probably a good workout, but you're just like 25, 30 minutes like pinned, in your basement, but you're almost getting the racing stimuli and you're like jacked up to do it. It is a good workout. I think one winter I had a friend who was like, we're all gaining weight because we're only doing we do like 3 Zwift races a day. And it's like essentially the same as lifting weights. So you're just like not exactly what you're looking for when you're trying to be fast racing, but it is like a really intense circuit workout almost.
Yeah, I think particularly as you age, this doesn't get talked about as much, but for your hormonal health, you really need to do some extremely high intensity efforts. And again, I'm not a medical doctor. This isn't medical advice, blah, blah, blah. Just from my experience and from that of other people I know who are aging athletes, if you want to continue to naturally produce the hormones that produce all the positive adaptations in your body, you have to do something stressful enough to elicit the hormonal response that will create those changes. And then you also have to rest, recover, and sleep. And maybe that's a topic that we'll cover next time. We're going to keep this short, sweet, hard to beat. Spencer, thanks for joining me. You can find Spencer on Substack at Beyond the Peloton. You can find him on Peacock. You can find him on WEDU. And you can also listen to our professional cycling analysis podcast, Beyond the Peloton. And let me know what you think about this episode. Would you like to hear more episodes like these? Would you like to hear how much we bench, our spotting protocol? You let me know. Shoot me a DM at Hardway Pod.
Benching is scary, man.
Yeah, make sure that you're using spotter bars if you're benching inside your weight cage at home. I could tell you a lot of stories about dropping the bar on myself at public gyms, Spencer, pinning myself.
Oh yeah. I've been there.
Yeah. If you haven't pinned yourself, I'm not sure we could even be friends.
Then you learn just like society can't help you if you need it. When you're no more of a helpless feeling pinned down on a public bench, then you need someone to come help you. A truly humbling experience.
Yeah. Until next time, train safe and just train however much time you have.